So the escalating Iran-Israel war has put the United States pretty much on the edge. The American president has to make up his mind. He has to come out and say whether he wants to join the war or not. And this, of course, is going to be very, very closely watched. Is Donald Trump going to lead the United States of America into yet another very expensive war in West Asia? And if America, in fact, does indeed go on and join this war, what will be the trajectory of this war? A key meeting of the United States ended some time back. The American President Donald Trump had convened a high-level National Security Council meeting. And amidst the ongoing escalation in West Asia, the meeting lasted for well over an hour. And hours before the meeting, Trump had said that the United States has got complete control over the skies of Iran. Now, Trump called for unconditional surrender from Iran and said that he knows exactly where Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is at this moment, but the Americans, or rather the Israelis, he says, are choosing not to assassinate him. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, and I quote him here, Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare with American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. He hailed the use of US-made weaponry, although without explicitly mentioning the state of Israel. Trump's remarks have come just hours after he said that he wants to end the Israel-Iran war and not go for a ceasefire. The US embassy in Israel struck by an Iranian missile on Monday. The first strike on an American diplomatic facility in this conflict points at a concern bigger than ever before. Though at least so far the US has spoken of restraint, there's also no denying that powerful forces are pushing America deeper into its involvement in this war initiated by Netanyahu. The first, Israel's call. Netanyahu has formally requested the American military support to target Iran's deeply buried Fordo uranium enrichment site. Israeli officials have confirmed that they lack the capability to destroy this facility independently. And secondly, there's also mounting domestic political pressure on Trump from within his own party. And the former Vice President Mike Pence has stated that if Israel needs US help to destroy Iran's nuclear program, then the United States should be prepared to do it, calling Israel the most cherished ally of the United States of America. The Republican senators and hawks in Washington have urged Donald Trump to go all in, including providing bombs or flying with Israel, and not to be missed the direct attacks on US interests, such as attacks on embassy in Tel Aviv. Now, looking forward, Tehran could also stage an attack on international shipping in the Gulf. It hasn't done it yet, but these are some of the options that it could exercise if this war progresses further. Now, if Iran were to decide to shut down the Persian Gulf for the transfer of oil, then this, of course, will trigger a global energy crisis. Now, the United States entering into the conflict carries immense significance and dangers. Iran has vowed retaliation against any nation that joins to back Israel. There are an estimated 40,000 American soldiers who are posted in West Asia, with their bases, embassies and naval vessels that could face immediate missile attacks from Iran or any one of its proxies. If Iran feels its regime is existentially threatened, then it might accelerate its nuclear program to develop a weapon, leading to an even more dangerous security landscape and an economic fallout that would be global. The Strait of Hormuz, a crucial choke point for 20% of the world's oil, could of course become a war zone, causing energy prices to go through the roof that could destabilize the global markets. The tensions continue to simmer and Israel is pressing forward, and the risk of the regional war spiraling out of control with potential US involvement remains very real. Now, this crisis could very well define President Trump's second term. All right, now on the broadcast we've got Dr. Reza Khanzadeh, who is a senior foreign policy advisor. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Dr. Khanzadeh, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, President Donald Trump has an important decision to make. The Israeli Prime Minister has asked for American help. The question, of course, is this: Will President Donald Trump, who's called himself the president of peace, decide to join this war in the Middle East?
Yeah, thanks for having me. That seems to be the most important question right now at this point, considering what we've seen transpire over the last couple hours and days, especially with Trump leaving the G7 summit in Canada, leaving that early to then meet with his security cabinet, with much speculation that there may be a discussion about the U.S. Joining and or helping Israel uh, attack Iran, specifically with uh, bunker busting bombs, for Iran's Fordo. Whether or not he will do that, I feel at this point it's so difficult to say, because up until a few hours ago, most analysts, most experts, including myself, felt that he would not,
Right.
primarily because of the campaign slogan that he ran on, not wanting to go into any more wars. And in your program, you mentioned how many in his own political party want him to help and aid Israel. There's also a good number of politicians within his own political party that don't want him to do that. And many, if not most, of the people in the United States who voted for him voted on that campaign for him, promising not to go into any more wars. Now, this type of war is very different than the type of war that many Americans are describing or envisioning, because when they talk about no more wars in the Middle East, they envision something that happened in Iraq or Afghanistan, where there were U.S. soldiers on the ground fighting an actual war. In this instance, that won't be the case. As far as we know, that's very, very unlikely to happen. At the most, at this time, it will be just the U.S. supplying Israel with bigger and better bombs in order to help Israel really do the
Right.
like the level of damage that they want to do.
Right.
And Trump could very well help them do that, especially in his second term. He's not up for re-election, so as far as his own political career is concerned, I don't think he cares about that. He does care about his legacy, but even with that type of legacy, whether he's the president of peace or the president that gave freedom to a country like Iran, if that's the way he sees it, he could still make that decision. Now, at the same time, there have been reports out of Israel where they have decided to bomb Iran's Fordo nuclear site with or without U.S. help. Now, what that entails, how that's going to
But
look,
they've
remains to
actually
be
already
seen.
done it. Dr. Khanzadeh, this is where it's very
That's
interesting.
true. It's
The
happening right now.
Israelis
Yeah,
have
yeah,
actually already bombed Fordo. And what
that's
is
right.
to be pointed out is that the IAEA later in its assessment said that despite the Israeli bombings, the fact that the nuclear facility in Fordo is so deep under the mountains is that there was literally nothing that was damaged despite the Israeli bombing, which is why the Israelis have now formally requested the United States to in fact step in and try
Right.
take that nuclear facility out. But I want to go back to what you said, which I find is interesting. You said that earlier you were of the belief that Donald Trump would not take the United States into a war which has been started by the Israelis, but you now have changed your mind. What changed your mind?
Well, it seems like the strategy that was going into this attack by Israel with the consultation of the Trump administration was that these series of attacks over the past 3 days and 4 days, now we're on to the fifth and sixth day, but those first 3, 4 days, uh, the strategy was from Israel and the United States was that these level of attacks would bring Iran to some level of weakness, to the point where they might either heed to these attacks and want to have some type of off ramp where there could be diplomacy to have a ceasefire and maybe continue the nuclear talks. And we've seen that's not the case. Every day that goes on, Iran is continuously bombing Israel, and some nights it's more bombs than others, and there's much more attacks actually occurring now because Israel's, Iron Dome has not been that successful compared to the first few nights. Now we're on to the fifth and sixth night. And there is a war of attrition to also keep in mind here, because Iran does have a finite number of bombs. There's going to get to a point where they're just going to run out. They don't have an unlimited supply like Israel does, because Israel has access to the United States. So there's also that to consider. But given the level of surprise that I think Israel and the United States have seen, that Iran has been able to counter Israel with these tit-for-tat attacks. And now we're at a point where both countries are essentially bombing each other at the same time. They're not taking turns anymore. And the bombing is also happening during the daytime. I feel like that has tipped the scale a bit towards the favor of Iran, but also to their detriment, because now Trump is actually seriously considering helping and aiding Israel.
Right. Dr. Khanzadeh, there is a history to how Israel has fought wars in the past. Ever since Israel was brought into existence in 1948, the Americans have aided and have fought in every single war that the Israelis have been involved in, 1967, 1973, etc. But this time round, it is the fifth day, and yet the American involvement still seems ambiguous. Why do you think Americans are taking so much time to make up their mind this time round?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that question, and unfortunately, we don't have enough time, I think, on this program.
But if you could go into it briefly.
I'll try to keep it short. Essentially, I think to put it shortly, it really has to do with the mindset of the American culture, environment, however way you want to call it. The American citizens know a lot more about their government now. There's not many secrets as far as the way U.S. foreign policy is concerned when it comes to Israel, and a lot more people within America are
But America is not concerned with public opinion when it comes to waging wars. I mean, we've witnessed this in the past, where the public opinion could be against war, but the American government is more than happy to go into a war head first. But why do you think this time round, it is day 5, it is night 6 of this exchange between Iran and Israel, and yet, despite the beating that the Israelis have taken, we've never witnessed this kind of destruction of an Israeli cities as what we've witnessed in the last 5 days. What do you think is holding the Americans back?
I think it has to do with the new round of, or not round, but the new breed of politicians that are entering the Republican Party, who are very much against these types of wars. They have lived through it with Iraq and Afghanistan, and also they are much more against AIPAC, which is Israel's lobbying arm within Capitol Hill, within Congress, who bankroll a lot of these politicians, campaign seasons and trying to get reelected. And a lot of these new politicians are not buying into that type of bankrolling and being at the whims of AIPAC and Israel. So there is that counter within the American culture where they are pushing against that type of movement by AIPAC, by Israel. So I think that's what's kind of holding back the Trump administration at this time.
Interesting. We'll of course have to wait and watch as to what Donald Trump of course decides and how soon does he decide. But thank you very much indeed, Dr. Reza Khanzadeh, for joining us with your perspective there.
Thank you.